Hello, there we go. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much. As you said, my name is Craig Brown, and I am the Partnerships and Development Manager for Digital Extra. So I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about why extracurricular activity is so important for young people. Full disclosure, not a huge fan of public speaking, so standing up here in front of all of you staring at me, not my favorite activity in the world. When I do it in the past, typically I tend to stick to facts. Facts like Digital Extra supports the provision of extracurricular tech activities for young people across Scotland. Facts like schools and community organisations can apply for up to £5,000 to start up or scale up their tech activity in their school or community. Facts like we've supported 183 projects. They've engaged 55,000 young people, half of which are girls and young women. All of which I'm very proud of, but I'm not sure at the end of those talks that people really understood why we do what we do. Sure, they understood what we do, but do they understand why we do what we do? So I asked Colin, I said, Colin, can I try something a little bit different? I feel like this is maybe the right crowd for it. It's slightly more informal. Can I try something a little bit more informal? And he said, yeah, Craig, go on. So I don't have any slides, and I'm standing here and I'm walking around instead of standing behind the podium because it's a new thing for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you a story about myself. I'm hoping some of you can relate. And then from that, we'll understand why extracurricular activity is so important to young people. So you might be able to tell from my accent, not from Scotland. Grew up in Canada, moved to Scotland when I was in my 20s, been here ever since. So about half and half. Accent doesn't really tell the whole story. So my whole academics was in school in Canada. We had elementary, junior high, and high school, but for the sake of Scotland, I'm going to translate that to Scottish language. So we're going to have primary and secondary. Primary for me was pretty much the same as what I would think many of you were, or at least what I think a lot of people, young people have experience they have. It was pretty normal. I had friends. I would go out and I would play. I would have interests. I was really interested in science and technology, and it didn't impact on those friends or those friendships. Sure, I had to deal with some bullies in school, but at primary level, it didn't really matter. Then when I got to secondary, S1, S2, S3, things changed. And I'm sure maybe some of you can relate to this as well. My interest in science and technology, and I was and am a self-confessed nerd or geek or whatever word you want to use, it started to impact on how people perceived me. I was bullied quite a bit in S1 and S2 to the point where I would start to act out. I was purposely failing at some of my tests so that I would not be as academically inclined, or at least appear to be, and I wouldn't stand out. I was doing things like pulling the fire alarm in the hallway at the school because I wanted to be seen as a rebel and try and fit in. Needless to say, my parents noticed. Now, I was very lucky that I had two parents that were very involved in my life and loved me very much. So they went to the school after S2 and they said, what's going on? Why is our son doing this? And the school didn't really have a good answer. They tried their best, but at the end of the day, it was a large secondary school, and they were just trying to be there to help everyone else get through school, because that's kind of what they did. So my parents came and talked to me, and they said, you have this opportunity to go to a different school. It's a much smaller school, and you can have a fresh start. And I thought that was a good idea, because frankly, I didn't really like who I was becoming, but I just did it because I didn't want to be bullied. So at the beginning of grade 9, which is S3, I went to this new school, and I'm sorry to say, not a lot changed. I was probably pretty naive, certainly wasn't very confident, and I made myself a bit of a target. Now, I appreciate in an ideal world, there would be no such thing as bullies, no matter how confident you were or what your interests were. But this was late 80s, early 90s, and it was what it was, especially if you were into computing. Then at the end of S3, one of my teachers came to me, a biology teacher, so not computing, but it was a science teacher, and she said to me, Craig, you seem to have a really strong interest in science and technology. I've got this camp. It's being held by a local university. It's a residential camp. It's week long. Why don't you go, see what you think? I thought, that sounds horrible. I don't want to go away and be in this camp away from my family that I've never been away from in front of people that I don't know. But I loved science and I loved tech. And so the opportunity won me over and I went. It blew my mind. I had never had an experience like this in my life, and I mean that in the best possible way. Everyone there was like me, and I'm not saying that a lack of diversity is good, but I just meant I wasn't judged for being academically inclined. My interests in computing and technology and physics and chemistry were an advantage, not a disadvantage. And while I knew that that wasn't necessarily a reflection of the real world, it also made me realize that the microcosm that is high school was probably also not a reflection of the real world. So when I went back to school in the autumn, and it was S4, or the equivalent thereof, the bullies were still there. And for the first couple months, they still bullied me. Except my point of view had changed. My perspective had changed. A newfound confidence, a newfound understanding of the world. I can try and explain it to you in any way possible, but you just have to understand that this experience completely changed me and my outlook on life. And lo and behold, a few months later, those bullies stopped bullying me. Now, maybe they were growing up and they decided that they didn't fancy bullying me anymore. Maybe it was me. I don't know. But I can say that the bullying stopped. I also realized that learning doesn't necessarily have to happen within the four walls of a classroom. And that a good grade, doesn't have to reflect that you have achieved or learned something. So I immersed myself in extracurricular activity. Unfortunately, we didn't have a computing or tech club, but I immersed myself in yearbook. I immersed myself in student council. I joined sports teams, which I never thought I would have done. And I actually did well in basketball, so that became my sport, and I enjoyed it. Graduated from high school, fine, went to university, and did the same thing, and I had the same results. Yes, I did well academically, but the friends that I made for life and the experiences and confidence actually came from the extracurricular activities. Then when I graduated from university, I decided, you know what? I'm going to pack my bags. I'm going to move to another country where I know nobody, and I'm going to see what happens. This is the same kid who didn't want to go to a university for a week because he didn't know anybody and be away from his family for a week. All of it stemmed from the fact that that teacher sent me to an extracurricular camp that opened my mind and opened my eyes. So every day that I get up, and I've been doing digital extra for 8 years now, I still think of that. Why do we do what we do? Is it because there's a skills gap? Well, maybe if I'm talking to a recruiter, I'll say there's a skills gap. Is it because the digital economy is going to drive Scotland in the future? If I'm talking to government, maybe I'll say that. But I'll tell you what, when I wake up in the morning, I think, why am I going to go talk to this person about potentially giving me money? It's not because of the skills gap. And it's not because of the digital economy. It's because I am extremely confident that even though the story I just told you took part in a different country and it took part 30 years ago, there are young people in Scotland who have the lack of confidence, the lack of outlook, the lack of understanding about what real life is, and they're going through the same challenges I went through. And I want my life, my professional life, to be able to make a difference. And how I'm going to do that is I want to give them the same opportunity that was given to me. So right now, I've got 103 applications in my inbox. Our deadline was last week. Those are for projects that we're going to support in the 2025-2026 academic year. Now, I wish I could tell you that we're going to support all 103 of them. The reality is it's very difficult to raise money. So I've raised over the past 12 months enough money to support about 25 to 30 of them. I'd love to be able to support more. I really would. And Colin approached me and he said, would you like to be the charity partner and stand up in front of a group of people and tell them about your charity? I said, heck no, I don't want to do that. But I'm here. And the reason I'm here is because I would love for you to think that buying a £5 raffle ticket is maybe worth it. Not because you might win a prize and you got to be in it to win it, so go on. But because you add up all those £5 tickets and maybe we can support one more project. Well, what's one more project out of 103, Kraig? Well, that's 20, 40, 60, 80 kids who might have the same opportunity that I have and have their mind exploded the same way I did. And isn't that worth it? So, I'm almost up. I've got about a minute left. If you want to have a chat with me after about what we do, because I could honestly go on for a lot more, please come and grab me, but I'm not going to. But otherwise, my name is Kraig Brown. I represent Digital Extra, and thank you very much for your time.